Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my Fishing Tackle 102 series. Going to piggyback off the Fishing Basics 101. I'm going to talk more about consolidating your tackle, more about simplifying your tackle box, and figuring out what lures do I need to be successful without overcomplicating everything, without having a bunch of lures that I don't need. So like I've said before, there is no right or wrong answer to what lures are going to work. In reality, all lures work, okay? You can take a lure, any lure you have, and you can make it work. Every lure that's ever been created has caught fish. So there is no answer as to what works, what doesn't work. It all works. It's more about the percentages. If I use this bait, maybe I'll catch 1 fish. If I use this bait at the same place at the same time, maybe I'll catch 10 fish. So what will increase your percentage of success? That's really all it comes down to. This obviously is very subjective and it has a lot to do with my areas that I fish in. So let me just make it clear. I generally fish rivers and creeks, occasionally a lake, but generally rivers and creeks. I'm going for a smaller overall size than your typical largemouth bass in a lake. So if you only fish largemouth bass in lakes off of a bass boat, you can still take what I'm about to give you, this template, and you can still use it, just, making it bigger, just amplifying everything, just expounding on everything, making it bigger, just ramping it up. If you only fish crappie or you only fish for panfish, you can obviously scale it down. You can take the same structure that I'm giving you here and you can just scale it down. But this is a great structure and it really works. So how most people determine the kind of fishing lures that they want to use is a couple ways. So you have your casual fishermen and they don't really think about it. One, they just use live bait. They go dig up worms or buy worms, or they go catch minnows or buy minnows, whatever the case, and they just use live bait. There's nothing wrong with that. That will definitely catch you a high number of fish. Also, casual fishermen will just ask what everybody's using. If you go to a place, ask around and someone's gonna tell you this is what the fish are biting, this is what has been having success recently. Once again, nothing wrong with that, very logical thing to do. Then on the extreme end, you have your professional fishermen who are literally fishing for a living, their profession, and it's the difference between continuing this career or not. Might even be what they're gonna put food on their table or not. So they have to go into the meticulous details to make sure that they have thought it through, to the nth degree, and have figured out exactly the best scenario for every type of lure, for every type of fish, I should say, for every type of lake, river, whatever the case, in every kind of season, in every type of condition. And they have probably a room full of tackle, and they know when to use a particular bait, and then they have every color probably in that bait, and they have to overthink it though. It's their job, it's their career, it's their livelihood. So you have that extreme end. So I'm somewhere in the middle. Obviously, I don't want to take the time to think it through to that point that the professionals do, nor do I want to spend the kind of money that they put up to have all that stuff. My goal is to simplify what I have. Having said that, I don't want to become so simple that I just buy live bait or I just ask what everybody's using and go buy that lure from the store. I do want to think it through because it's fun. Let's just be honest. It's fun for me, and I think a lot of you out there, it's fun to just think it through and make a plan and get a collection of lures, get a set of lures that is going to work for you, and do a little bit of research and put it all together, and then to go out and actually fish with them and to see your plan come together and see it work is a pretty cool thing. So that's what this is about. I'm just going to try and break it down and try to shrink your tackle box as much as I can, because you don't need every lure imaginable. You don't need a gigantic backpack plumb full of fishing lures. You don't need a giant tackle box that's a struggle to carry around. So let me be clear, I've done that. I have been that guy that had a massive tackle box because I thought I have to have everything with me at all times because I don't know what I'm gonna need. And I put a lot of thought into it. And for what I knew at the time, got a pretty good tackle box full of lures that I felt like could do the job in any kind of condition. And then went out and started using them. If I was in a boat, I would take that gigantic tackle box. I would even take it wade fishing sometimes. I did that one time. Never did it again because obviously you'd have to find a place to set it down. Well, from that experience, I began to realize, yeah, I didn't need all that stuff. And the more I fished, the more I would see what was successful, what wasn't successful. The more I would realize how stupid I felt for buying a lot of stuff because I had watched a YouTube video or I had read a book on how great it was. I was a sucker, basically. In every instance, I would watch someone, they would show how great this lure was. They go catch fish, I've got to have it, so I'd buy it. And I would end up even going to yard sales and people had old fishing lures, and I would just, I don't mean like antique fishing lures that are collectible. I mean just a tackle box full of stuff that they didn't want anymore, and I would buy them. And I just had ended up with so much tackle that I didn't even like 90% of it. Once I actually tried to use it for once or twice and realized, why did I buy that? But you can't reverse time, right? You can't go back and change it. So I basically realized that I don't need all this, okay? I need to start over and just keep the stuff I really, really, really like or know that's gonna work. But then I thought, I'm gonna end up getting right back in the same place. I'm gonna end up doing the same thing. I'm gonna cut my tackle down to a small amount of what I know works, but I'm gonna end up building it right back up. So I need to have a structure in place. I need to have a plan to where this is all I need to have. This is all I need to carry. It's not to say I need to get rid of everything at home. I can still keep that stuff, but I need to get a structure in place as to what I need to carry with me when I go fishing. And that will help me in the future, and hopefully will help you in the future to realize you don't need to buy anything else. And just be aware that there's a lot of wiggle room in this. This is a structure that you should stick with, but you could substitute anything out. So the first thing you need to think about is where you're gonna be fishing at and what kind of game fish that you're gonna be fishing for. Now, if you fish for fish all over the world and ocean versus freshwater, bass, crappie, muskie, trout, on and on and on. Well, the more variety in fish that you go after, the harder it's going to be to narrow it down. But if you spend 99% of your time fishing the same way at the same places for the same type of fish, let's just focus on that. Let's not worry about the once a year that you go trout fishing or the once a year that you can go offshore fishing or something like that. So let's just focus on the fishing you do. Now, like I said, for me, it's Ozark streams. I live here in Missouri. Ozark streams, that's what I like to fish. Occasionally I will fish a lake, but generally speaking, rivers and creeks. And I prefer to catch bass, largemouth, smallmouth bass, but I don't want my lures to be so big, or my bait to be so big that it can't catch goggle eye, which is a rock bass. It can't catch crappie. It can't catch a green sunfish or something like that. I want my lures to be big enough that they're enticing to bass, but small enough that the big crappie, the big goggle-eyed, the big sunfish can still eat them. So I'm looking for that ground right in the middle. So I know the size of lure that I'm after, and I basically know the kind of fish that I'm going to be fishing for in the places that I'm going to be fishing. So just think that through from the beginning. And then here's the next step: is you have to focus this set, or this collection of lures that you're going to come up with around one type of lure. Once you see what I have on mine, you'll realize that it doesn't mean you only have one type, but it's focused around one type. It can branch off. You can have substitutes, you can have extras, alternates, all that kind of stuff. But you got to figure out what it's going to be focused on. You know, we all like to throw soft plastics and jigs and worms and crankbaits and spinnerbaits and buzzbaits and chatterbaits and this and that and that. Well, you can't focus on all that. You have to pick something that you like the most, that you want to focus on. So think about the kind of fishing that you've done in the past, the kind of lures that you have that have worked in your bodies of water. And maybe you say, you know what? The spinnerbait family is where it's at. Whether it's a spinnerbait or a buzzbait, that's what I like. Or maybe it is crankbaits. You said I always end up using a crankbait. No matter what I start with, I always end up using a crankbait. And so I want to focus my whole thing on crankbaits. Fine. And how you decide this, like there is no right or wrong answer, but just, you've got to focus it on something. So my focus is soft plastics. That's what my focus is. So I know I'm looking for bass, also goggle-eye crappie, rivers and streams, and I know that it's going to be centered around soft plastics. Doesn't mean everything I'm getting ready to tell you is soft plastics. In fact, it's not. But that's where it starts. That's the focus. That's the centerpiece is soft plastics. So this whole set is going to be around soft plastics. Got that figured out? Okay. And obviously, if it's different for you, just whatever you're thinking, just make it for you. Just, personalize it for yourself. But mine is soft plastics. Now, let's talk about colors. This is the next important thing. You don't need 10 colors of every lure that you pick. You don't need 5 colors of every lure that you pick. I'm going to go as far as to say you don't need 4. I'm going to give you 3 colors, okay? And those colors are going to match with my presentation. So in every type of fishing I'm doing, it's all going to be in 3s. Okay, just think 3. 3 colors, 3 presentations. And I'm going to match colors with presentations, just with logical sense, just thinking it through and realizing that presentation would go perfect with that color, so on and so forth. So the 3 colors are this: natural, bright, dark. You don't need anything else. Natural is pretty self-explanatory. It matches the hatch. It's your shad, it's your crawdad, it's your minnow, it's your frog, it is your sunfish, your bluegill. It's just whatever the bait is. It's what the game species of fish that you're going after, it's what they eat. It could be an insect, doesn't matter, whatever it is. So the color should be natural. End of story. Okay, bright. Bright is not natural. It's intended to stand out. Okay, you're not trying to blend in and be as natural as possible. You're literally trying to stand out and be different. Okay, and then dark. Literally, you're just trying to have a dark, solid color that silhouettes well. When would you go with these colors? It's real simple. We don't need to make it complicated. It's all about water clarity, okay? If your water is clear, And that could come from two factors. It could come from literally the clarity of the water, whether it's muddy water or whether it's clear water. And it also comes from light. The more sunlight that shines in to the body of water, the more clear it becomes, the better the clarity is. The less wind, wind and waves and ripples, all that does is slow down light from going in. So the more light, no clouds, no current or wind, clear water, your ultra clear clarity water, go with natural. Okay, you don't have to go with natural just in that case, but that's definitely where you'd want a natural color. And it's not to say you couldn't use anything else in that clear water, but it's the percentages. Your percentages go up. If the fish can get a really good look at it, make it look as natural as possible. Bright. Okay, this is literally, the water's not quite as clear. Maybe it's cloudy out. Maybe there's a little bit of current. Maybe the water's just stained. It's just a little muddy. And so it's not quite as clear. The water clarity is not quite as good. So you want bright colors to stand out. Pretty simple. Dark. It is what you would think at this point. Water's either muddy, or very muddy, or it's not really muddy water, but it's just, there is no sun out. It's very cloudy, windy, or maybe it's nighttime, okay? Whatever reason, the water's dark. So an example of a color, a natural color would be like a green pumpkin. And the reason we say green pumpkin a lot, and anybody on YouTube always brings up green pumpkin, because it looks like a crawdad, because it looks like a bluegill. It just looks natural, okay? It doesn't have to be green pumpkin. There's tons of other natural colors, but it needs to be natural. A bright color, I always think of white and chartreuse. Those two would be the perfect ones. It could be pink, it could be orange, whatever, okay? But those bright colors. Dark, think black and blue. Black and or blue. And it's not just those two, but that's the two I would pick for dark colors, okay? So you've limited it down. You have your natural colors like your green pumpkin. You got your bright colors like your white or your chartreuse. You got your dark colors like your black and blue. Don't make it more complicated. Next thing. Okay, you've narrowed it down to 3 color groups, not literally 3 colors, but 3 color groups. Now you need to think about what level of water you're fishing. Is it top water? Is it mid depth? Or is it the bottom? Okay. You are literally going to be basing everything you do off whether it's top water, mid depth, or bottom. That would be different. You're probably not going to fish a worm on top water, though you can. There are floating worms. Probably not going to be fishing a frog lure on the very bottom, but you could. If you look at this, natural, bright, dark, bottom, mid, top. That gives me 9 squares. Remember, I have picked soft plastics as the core of my plan, and I have 3 different kinds of styles of fishing. Bottom, mid, top. I've got 3 color groups, natural, bright, and dark. That gives me 9 baits that I need to carry. Now, I'm actually, when I'm all said and done, I'm going to have more than 9, okay? So don't think it's just 9, but you could, with this structure, go with just 9. So let's just go with bottom. First of all, actually, let's just go with top water. So, going back to your bait fish, or I'm sorry, your bait, you're matching the hatch. When I think of top, I think of frog. I think of mid, I think of either fish, like a minnow, or a crawdad that's swimming. When I think of bottom, I think of either crawdad or worm, okay? And so anything I'm fishing that's a bottom lure, I want it to look like a worm or a crawdad. Anything I'm fishing that's designed for mid-depth, it needs to look like a fish or a crawdad. Anything I'm fishing for top, probably needs to look like a frog. It could look like a fish as well, but I go with frog, keeping it simple. So frog, fish, crawdad, okay? Could it be more complicated than this? Yes, but that's what we're trying to avoid. Is it different in a lake? Of course. You know, it's a lot deeper, so your mid is way different. But this structure could fit with any body of water. Top water, got 3 colors, right? For top water, I've got natural, bright, and dark. So if I decide that I want to fish top water and I decide my best bet is to go natural, what am I gonna do? Frog. This particular frog is a Strike King. A Strike King Super Toad. Actually might be a little bit big for your goggle eye, for your crappie. I've actually got something else coming, and you're probably gonna hear me say that a lot, but I've got something else coming. It's gonna be a little bit better, but this will work fine. I've got it rigged, kind of Texas rigged. It's not gonna have any weight on it. Soft plastic. Throw this across the top of the water. It's got a lot of action on it. Fantastic. I'm not adding anything to it. I'm not doing anything special for it. It's a fairly natural color. Top water, done. Easy. So I need to carry these with me. I need to carry some of these in my tackle box or in my vest, okay? Well, what about bright colors? You say, okay, I'm not trying to blend in. I'm not trying to look natural. I'm actually trying to stand out now. What do I do? Well, that's when I'm gonna go with the buzzbait. But I'm still gonna use this as the trailer or something like this. Now, I'm gonna use bright colors because I want it to stand out. So it's gonna be a white or a chartreuse, something that's not really natural. I personally am gonna use only a 1/4 ounce buzzbait because I want it to be that mid size. I don't want it to be a big buzzbait. I don't want it to be a tiny buzzbait. I want it to be that perfect mid size, which this whole thing is all about, that intermediate size. 1/4 ounce chartreuse and white buzzbait, probably some type of 3-inch frog as a trailer. And the blade, probably would prefer it to be gold or painted. Gold just literally has more of a shine than silver does. So a gold blade is gonna shine better. So soft plastic is still the base, but I'm adding a lot to it. Instead of just using this as the natural means, I'm gonna add it to a rig, and the rig is gonna be a buzzbait, and I'm gonna go with those colors. Now, you could expand this out and say, well, just have a natural colored buzzbait with a silver blade with a similar colored soft plastic, or no soft plastic, then have your chartreuse, and then have your black and blue buzzbait, and you have all 3. That's fine. But if I do that, I also need to have one of these in green pumpkin, one of these in white, one of these in black. And before you know it, it's just this little tiny group of lures that's gonna meet my needs is gonna just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I don't need a natural colored buzzbait. If I'm gonna go natural, I'm just gonna go really natural. So the color matches the presentation. I have a natural presentation, simple. I have a natural color. But if I'm trying to stand out, why not stand out? Not just in the color, but in the presentation. So it's a buzzbait. It makes more commotion on the top. It's got a gold blade. I might even use a soft plastic trailer with some gold flake or something in there that is sparkly. If it's super clear water and it's bright sun, probably not gonna jump onto the buzzbait right off the bat. I'm just gonna start with something natural. Okay, dark color. Now you could say, well, just go with a black and blue buzzbait with the painted black blade, maybe a clacker. That would work. And if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm actually not gonna go with a buzzbait or a soft plastic, see? So even though soft plastic is the focus of this, is where I always start, I can deviate, and that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go with a Jackall Binksy black and green popper. I just basically want a black floating hard bait with treble hooks, and it could be anything, but that's just what I want. So if I'm gonna be fishing dark water presentation, dark water color bait for top water, I'm actually just gonna go with a hard bait. I'm actually just gonna go with that popper. Popper, you can walk the dog with the popper, but obviously it chugs the water. The Jackall Binksy actually has a propeller on it as well and rattling, so it kind of does everything. You say, well, why don't you just go with the buzzbait? Well, I'm kind of thinking about nighttime, because if it's really, really dark, maybe it's dusk or not daylight yet, or maybe it's just in the middle of the night, and maybe I can't see so well to throw that buzzbait. Because see, a buzzbait is awesome, or a spinnerbait. It really, as long as you keep cranking it, it's not gonna get hung up very often. But anything with treble hooks, it's gonna get hung up. But at nighttime or in low light conditions, dark conditions, my visibility is low anyway. I'm not gonna be able to make pinpoint cast. It's more of a lobbing it out there in a general area and being slower with my presentation. So that leans itself to a hard bait. So there you go, done. Got a natural, got a buzzbait. I'm not holding it, but a buzzbait would be for the bright color presentation, and the dark color presentation would be a popper. It could be anything else. You can substitute whatever you want, but that would be what I would go with. Let's talk about mid-depth, okay? Actually, let's just talk about bottom. We will end with the mid, but bottom. Bottom is slightly more complicated. I'm actually gonna have 2 bottom lures for every color. So it went from 9 to 12. Why is that? Because there's 2 that are just absolutely perfect for the bottom. Crawdad is, the bass just eat crawdads around here. That's the number one thing that they eat. But you can't not have worms. Worms just flat out work. So I'm gonna have 2 all the way across the 3 colors and presentations on bottom. Gonna go with the green pumpkin lure just on a jig head. Something real simple. Caught many fish doing this. Just literally throw it out there. You can let it drop to the bottom. You could change this jig head to something else closer to like a football head jig or something, and fish it slow. But I literally just kind of throw it out there, let it sink, let it set on the bottom for just a second or two, jig it or hop it once, maybe twice, and then just reel it in. And I've caught tons of fish on the reel, which we'll get to in a second. But if I want to go natural and I want to go bottom, I'm just gonna do this, okay? Notice there is no skirt. There is no weed guard. This is super natural. But what if I say, I think I want to use a worm? Go with a natural worm. This is a very natural looking worm. Now, I actually got other worms coming. I think I'm gonna go with the big TRD and the Z-Man. It's a 4-inch, more of a stick bait. That's what I'm gonna be using in the future, but for now, this is my natural worm. Caught fish on this. You might say, well, why do you need 2? Well, I would say horizontal presentation, vertical presentation, rocks, grass. You can figure the rest out. So done, easy, right? Let's say that I moved to the bright color. So I went from green pumpkin to now I want a brighter color. Now, this particular one I have at the moment is not super different. It's kind of the same colors, but there are some other strands in there. I would probably replace this at some point with something with some chartreuse in it or something like that, maybe a little gold flake. But the difference is, remember, on the bright color, I'm trying to stand out. So the difference is bigger presentation, more going on. And like I said, probably would go with a brighter lure in the future. But if I'm already going brighter, if I'm already trying to stand out, why not go bigger, better? You know, if you're already not trying to look as normal as possible, it's not that you're not trying to look normal, but you're literally trying to stand out, then why not get something that looks maybe a little bit more enticing? Maybe it looks different. Maybe it looks bigger. Maybe it looks more just interesting. And then of course, on the dark colors, same thing. Use the same thing, but black and blue. Have a dark colored crawdad looking lure on it. Done. It's more of a solid color. You don't want something that's see-through. You want a solid color that silhouettes well. Done. And I would probably go with a 1/4 ounce or a 5/16 on all those as well. Easy, right? Worm, super simple. Rig this Texas rig, or you could use some kind of Ned rig style, or even wacky rig. Use natural colors. If it's bright, maybe go with a pink or an orange, or maybe a whiter chartreuse or something. Maybe something with metal flake in it. If it's a dark color, sorry about that. If it's a dark color, if it's a dark color presentation, black and blue worm, maybe a grape worm, something like that. Done. Easy, right? Okay, mid. So, frog was the main bait for top, crawdad and worm were the two main baits for the bottom. Mid, it's mainly fish, right? But it can also be crawdad, and that's where I get back to this. I've caught so many fish swimming this thing, swimming it. And I know what this is, in case you're thinking, this guy's crazy. I know this is a trailer for a jig, but you don't need it. Use it by itself, it works really good. I've actually caught a lot more fish swimming it than I have jigging it on the bottom, mainly because of the action that it gives off. So I actually don't add another lure here for my natural mid presentation. I just keep whatever I'm using for the natural bottom, and I use the same thing. But if I did want to, I would go with a natural minnow looking color in a swim bait, some kind of paddle tail swim bait, or possibly a grub, something like that, in probably about a 3-inch. Easy, easy, easy. But in this case, I'm not even adding anything. I'm just using the same one. Bright color mid. Okay. Now I'm actually, with the bright and the dark, I am going to transition over to fish. Okay. Minnow type lure. But I'm going to go with a white or a chartreuse minnow, something that's just a little bit brighter, a little bit stands out more, possibly gold flake. But I'm going to use it as a trailer on a spinnerbait. So once again, I could have a natural minnow, I could have a white minnow, I could have a chartreuse minnow, I could have a black minnow. I could also have 3 spinnerbaits. I could have a natural shad or smoky pearl colored spinnerbait with silver blades. I could have a chartreuse spinnerbait with gold blades. I could have a black and blue spinnerbait with painted blades. Nothing wrong with that. That's what you want to do, but I'm simplifying it even further. So if I'm going mid and I'm going natural color, just go with something that's natural. The only spinnerbait I'm going to have in this entire thing is just for mid-depth bright color. So if I do want to go bright and I do want to stand out, have some flash, probably going to go with a white and chartreuse skirted spinnerbait with the same type of colors on the swim bait that attach to it. And then I'm gonna have a gold blade on it, possibly some metal flake in it, whatever the case. And that's the flashy presentation matches the flashy colors. What if I wanna go with a dark color? Well, I'm actually not gonna go with a dark spinnerbait. I am gonna go with a black and blue minnow shaped lure, probably paddle tail swim bait, but I'm gonna use that as a trailer on a chatterbait. Chatterbait's really not trying to be flashy. It's more trying to vibrate underneath the water and get the bass's attention, not from flash, but from movement. And I'm gonna go with a chatterbait, black and blue paddle tail on a chatterbait with a painted black blade. Done. Awesome. So right there, that's actually 11 lures, because I used this one twice, and you could easily just add a minnow for your mid-depth natural colors. Done, right? Yeah, that would be plenty. Just carry that with you, put it in your fishing vest, put it in your tackle box, and you've got very little bit of, can't talk, you've got a very small amount of tackle, but yet you've thought everything through, and for any circumstance, you have something that's gonna work. But what about the extras? Because every one of you that watches this is gonna think, well, I like that, but there's this one lure that just works. Every time I use it, it always catches fish, and it doesn't technically match up with what you're saying. That's okay. You can have extras. I have 4 extras here, and I'm probably gonna add more later, but I don't wanna add too many because then you're defeating the purpose. But Helgramite from Nico is one of my extras. It just is a cool lure. I don't want it to replace the crawdad or the worm. It kind of just stands on its own. I don't want it to be its own category. I just want it to be an extra. I just want to have a Nico Helgramite as an extra. And so I'm going to carry that on there. I want an extra topwater lure of some kind. So I have the buzzbait. I have just normal frogs I'm gonna throw on the top. And I have a black popper or a jitterbug or something like that. But I want one extra topwater lure. It could be whatever you want. It could be a little rat lure. The thing I've picked is a Zaraspook. And I just like that lure. It works good. It kind of offers something totally different from these other things. So I'm gonna carry that. I like a beetle spin. I love beetle spins. So I'm gonna carry some type of little spinnerbait with just a single Colorado blade, and you just put some kind of grub on there, some kind of little beetle spin body or something like that. But it's even smaller than your spinnerbait. So just like an extra little spinnerbait, I call it a beetle spin. And then a square billed crankbait. Could use this one like this. I think this is a Rebel crawfish. I literally just came from the river a few hours ago and I was catching fish with that particular lure right there. So some type of square billed crankbait. It could be anything. It could look like a sunfish. It could look like a minnow. It could look like whatever. But some type of little square billed crankbait is also kind of another presentation. So I have 11 lures in my little diagram here. This is duplicated. I've got 11, 3, 3, 2, and 3 with those 4 extras, which is a total of 15 lures. In fact, I basically can carry everything in my vest on me, and it's not very much weight. And I've thought it all through, and I've got something to do for every presentation or every circumstance that I might need to fish with. So hopefully this helps you just to narrow it down. Obviously you can substitute, okay? You say, well, I like your thought process, but I would never pick those lures. Fine, pick whatever lures you want. Or you might say, well, man, I don't have exactly what would fit into that category, because maybe I have a spinnerbait, but it has silver blades, not gold blades, that wouldn't match up with the bright color presentation. Don't worry about it. It's not that. You don't got to micromanage it here. Just stick with this structure. If you stick with the structure, how you substitute it, or if it is not exactly in line, is not a big deal. Don't stress out about it. Just whatever you got, put them in there. And if it's just not quite exactly like I've said here, it's fine. It's going to be okay. You don't have to be exact, but keep the structure. The structure is the important thing. Those three colors, natural, bright, dark, bottom, mid, top. Keep that. Want to throw a few extras in there, fine, but don't overcomplicate it. Hopefully this will help you. I find it really interesting, and I've got a lot of lures coming that are going to kind of replace some of these ones I have that I think will be perfect. And then it'll be interesting to actually go out and use them, and if I have one that just flat out never works, obviously it will be replaced. But hopefully this has been interesting to you. This has went on for a long time, so until the next time, take care.